Hi, everyone. The topic that we're covering today in this panel of literally superstars from different parts of the industry is Proptech a benefit, burden, or distraction to the business of real estate? I've, I've grown up over here. I've seen when, when you wanted to rent an apartment, you would literally go into the building and talk to the watchman, and you would get the details of the apartments available. Technology has advanced quite a lot over the past 20 years, especially in PropTech. And, you know, I'm going to pass it on to the panelists, a small introduction, and what is PropTech to you?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tanveer Shah. I'm thankfully a former banker, and at the moment I've advised and invested in a couple fintechs and proptechs. I see digitalization as the next wave to hit the region's real estate industry to create value. Thank you.
Mohammed Kaswani. I'm the managing director for Mortgage Finder, which is part of the Property Finder group. And I think, as Faisal knows, in short, PropTech to me is a lifestyle.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lynette Seketo. I've been in Dubai for 17 years. I've been in technology for the last over 20 years. And I've been in PropTech ever since I arrived here to Dubai 17 years ago. PropTech to me is a combination of data, big data, as well as digitization. And this is something that we have seen very pronounced over the last, I would say, 2.5 years, specifically once we were going through COVID. That's my introduction.
Okay, so I'm Anna. I'm the general manager of HUSP. I have a different background, so I'm new to PropTech. I used to work in fintechs before, and I've been to Dubai just 1 year now. And PropTech for me is a lot of companies trying, just a few succeeding.
That's a very interesting way to put it. My name is Russ. I'm at Home Tree, so I grew up here as well, along with Faisal. Similar process followed. You had to knock on every door to get anything done. I'm in valuations. We do real estate valuations, commercial valuations, and we're trying to disrupt the market with innovative products that will definitely be a value add to any individual that lives out here. And to me, PropTech, I mean, it is an ecosystem of startups and using advanced technologies to disrupt the market. That's what we're trying to do and achieve here.
Okay, so I want to make this a little interesting. So we've got three different, topics in this panel. First is the benefits, the burden, or is it a distraction? I'm going to start with the benefits. Like from each of you, the work that you've done so far, what are the benefits that you've brought to the consumers?
So in the mortgage space, definitely being able to first compare rates quickly. If you just think even a decade back, and most mortgages run for 20 plus years, so a decade is relatively short term in the real estate finance space. Just comparing rates usually would take visits from branch to branch of every bank and every lender. Now you can compare within 5 minutes, 20, 30 lenders at one go digitally. Next stage comes to getting initial approval of what lending you could potentially source. You can get that today in a few hours. So I think the time saving, the quickness of being able to decide on a home or an asset, even if I look at investment strategies, if you want to buy a building today, I've on our fund side, we've actually bought a building within 24 hours from looking at it, including the technical DD. So the speed of being able to move towards your decided goal, your destiny, is much quicker, which allows for people to fulfill their destiny. Whenever there's a gap, there's a time gap, your destiny, if you like a good home and that's where you would like to raise your kids, and build a life, if it takes 8 or 9 days, you might lose that home, which at first glance you felt was part of your destiny. So being able to actually pounce on your heart's impulse, your destiny, what's calling to you, being able to deliver that quicker and in real time for the consumer, I think is one of the biggest changes that has come in the real estate space, beyond just the physical aspects.
But you've set up like really large PropTech organizations before, and now with Mortgage Finder, like the benefits that you've brought to the industry.
Well, look, I mean, it'll be years before we're able to bring meaningful benefits to this industry, right? For a number of reasons. One is real estate is the single largest asset class in the world. So, you know, it's more than 3 times the size of all global public equities put together. And it also happens to be an industry with 99 problems, to say the least, right? So it is the number of benefits that PropTech can bring. One is this is the single largest transaction of most people's life, right? So bringing an element of transparency, knowledge to the consumer community, whether you're a retail buyer or you're an institutional investor, leveraging on data and AI with some of the great work that you've done to empower whether consumers or institutional funds in making better informed decision, that's an incredible benefit. Streamlining the transactions, right? Whether we're talking about the rental transaction, the mortgage transaction, you know, the home buying, selling, etc. There's so much that technology can play in to solve this problem. And it is a journey, you know, there are many stakeholders involved in it, and we'll be in it for many years.
Lynette, I know I've worked quite a bit with you before, for the majority of my life.
8 years.
You've done this across several geographies. You've done this in the U.S. and you've done that over here as well. So from a benefit angle, like where have we reached here compared to the rest of the world?
So I would say the biggest benefit has been big data and transparency, along with what Mohammed was talking about. When I arrived 17 years ago, I had to find an apartment, and there was no data. I was looking in the Gulf News newspaper. At that time, Property Finder was a magazine. Dubizzle was, selling cars, furniture, everything else. And there was zero data. And I came from the States, from a place where we had Zillow and Trulia, and we knew past historical transaction prices. And at that point, I said to myself, and this is when I really got into PropTech, I said, I don't know what it is that I have to do, but I'm going to bring data transparency into Dubai. Then I worked with the Dubai Land Department for about 6-7 years, and we brought forward Muasher along with Faisal. Muasher is the first official house price index for the city of Dubai, and it was the first time that we brought transparency of real estate data transactions into Dubai. And then we also worked on the open data API, where you can go to the Dubai Land Department, the API is available to everyone, where you can see sales, rental transactions, project and supply. And this has been my Dubai long story for bringing transparency, data transparency, which is a very big part of PropTech. Actually, without that, you cannot have PropTech, because it goes into mortgages, it goes into every single aspect of the PropTech world, as well as digitization. During COVID, Dubai was extremely active, especially at Dubai Land Department, with the transfer of property. We were one of the few, and we can probably name them on one hand, cities where we were actually transacting properties digitally, right in the thick of COVID. So we showed that it could be done. There was a very good proof of concept, and that we excelled throughout the pandemic and where we are today in the real estate industry. So that's how I would put it.
Anna, you've just said that you were here. You've been here 1 year. So the benefits here and what you've seen compared to the rest of the world.
Okay, so when we talk about PropTech, I think we have to remember what Kaswani said, the biggest asset class, 300 trillion. But we also have to remember that is the class that is least disrupted. So I kind of disagree with what you said. I think that real estate and prop tech evolved so little in the past years because the journey is still very fragmented. I don't know if you guys had been to the home buying journey recently, but you still have to go and talk to dozens of people, and you're not sure when we are talking about mortgages which is the right product for you. If you have access to all the opportunities, if you go directly to the bank, you just hear one side of the story. So I think we have to put ourselves in the shoes of all the stakeholders involved in this transaction. When we put ourselves in the client's perspective, we would like to offer a seamless journey in which they can contact just one person, one company, and have all the solutions from the search to the closing, including the mortgage and everything together. But we also want to make the ecosystem better for the other stakeholders. So the real estate agencies are not going anywhere. They own the market, and we have to empower the ecosystem for them as well. Mortgage brokers, the market is so big, they are still going to be there. What can we do for them? The banks, so they want best partners. They want to reduce the amount of resources that they have internally. How can we make it better for them? And I think this is what Husby is trying to bring to the table.
Russ, from a valuations point of view, this is like the property's been valued since day one of existence. Ever since people realized that okay, this is something you can own. There's been a value to it. Now, in terms of benefits from Proptech to the valuation industry specifically, what have you seen?
Yeah, you're right, Faisal. So, institution of chartered surveyors was established in 1800s. So valuations have been carried out for all the time we know. We, in my previous capacity, we would
A little closer.
we were engaged with 40 lenders here. We are doing in excess of a few thousand valuations on an annual basis. I personally have valued over 30,000 properties. Now, when it comes to PropTech, the whole industry is a bit untouched when it comes to valuation and PropTech. It hasn't evolved as everyone else here on the panel has spoken about. I think we're a lot behind. It has evolved in other parts of the world, mainly Western countries, UK, US. Well, a lot of automation has been created, valuation models have been created. We have seen some progress here. Obviously, in terms of benefit, this adds a benefit in terms of data. So one thing is seeing transactions. That is helpful. One thing is what the agent is telling you and bringing these transactions. That is also very helpful. But as a first-time buyer, second-time buyer, it doesn't matter. You want to understand what is the value of this asset. This could be a large chunk of your savings gone into this investment. You want to make sure that you're not being, not just fooled, but I guess it's the peace of mind. And therefore, evaluation is critical. But however, this has been fallen behind. It hasn't really evolved, like I mentioned. I think the benefits this could bring would be definitely adding more transparency. If we are working along the side of, for example, Husby, that could be a way to basically shorten the end-to-end period for the client to get a response. And it is transparency, it is shortening the period, it is reduction of costs. That will definitely help. And with all the data that Lynette was talking about, there's definitely room for this sector to grow above and beyond.
Okay. Now, we've looked at the benefits. Now, Anna, I agree with you. There hasn't been a lot of movement, but I had to start on a positive note. If you look at the majority of industries, even if you're looking at surgery, even if you're looking at lawyers, the first thing that came in is with AI, it can go to a level where, it would make paralegals not important. It would take other industries. It takes the human element out of it. But like you've said, and like we've seen, the human element is still very much at the center of PropTech. So is PropTech the distraction? Is it a burden? Because if we're still going to be, human-centered, is PropTech helping those to help others, or You know, like where does that leave us? Because there hasn't been as much movement as other industries. I'm going to open it up. Whoever wants to take this question.
I definitely do not see it as a burden. So I've been both on the portal side when I was working for Property Finder, and also on the brokerage side, who I work with now, just also been also. And from the portal perspective, we use machine learning, AI, to help the consumers in their search experience, which is very, very important, because the easier that we made it for the consumer to find the properties, because there's already so many pain points that a consumer has to go through. So all the easy things that we could take care of and get out of the way, we did through technology, through Proptech, through AI and ML. Now on the brokerage side, same thing. We use the same technologies to help the consumers that we're working with, to help our clients journey much more easier, because of all the pain points, and some of which you touched upon. There are several pain points within the real estate life cycle, especially here in Dubai. When you're dealing with transactions, you're dealing with the banks, you're dealing with valuations, you're dealing with so many different stakeholders, the agents, the agencies. It's just that we're actually in a beautiful place to capitalize on technology and Proptech to just make it that much better and remove all of these pain points by automation. And we really need that in this industry. And it's, I mean, all of us
That
here,
takes the human element out of it, right? As soon as you
you will
bring in
never get rid of
automation.
the real estate agent.
Yeah, but I completely agree with you there. But my question, let me take it a little bit. You know, like 2 years ago, when you had the pandemic and you had COVID, the COVID outbreak, a lot of companies created a lot of tech because you didn't have the human element in. They were
Correct.
locked up in their houses.
Yeah.
All that tech that was created then, I don't see it being used right now. It was only for that period when you took the human element out. As soon as the human element came back in, all that tech went to the background again. So
It did, and it got used and repurposed in different ways. During the pandemic, I was with Property Finder, and there was a lot of technology that was forefront during the pandemic, especially when people couldn't go out for viewings, that was used every day, all day long. And then once things relaxed and we started to get to more normalcy, it got repurposed into other ways within the company. Same thing on the brokerage side. The brokers had to utilize various different technologies and tools that they never had to do before during the pandemic. But once people started to relax and wanted to see people in person and do viewings in person, again, that's where that human element comes in. And you can never get, I personally believe, you will never get rid of the real estate agent. The real estate agent will always be a part of the process. However, technology just helps that process much more smoother.
Okay, so about the human part, I completely agree. But if you think, I don't know, Uber, for instance, you still need the driver and the client for you to make it happen. But if you make their lives easier, you can still disrupt the market through technology. So for PropTech, it's the same. We have the stakeholders there, but it's still a puzzle, and we have to make this journey a little bit more hassle-free, you know. So can we make the lives of the buyer and the banks and the agents and the brokers easier? I think the answer is definitely yes. So that's why there's space still for PropTech.
It's a very big problem. Look, as you very well know, I'd co-founded a startup in the past that digitized the rental journey from A to Z. And we pivoted very quickly after launch at the time. And I'll share with you my experience and the learning is this is the single largest transaction people make in their lives. For the most part, let's say 80, 90%, your average person, this is the largest transaction, whether you're renting a home or you're buying a home. So it is ultimately a human-powered, tech-enabled industry. I think this is where we are. If that changes in the future, in the 3.0, 4.0, 5.0 future, maybe, right? We'll, live to see it. But where we are today, humans remain at the very center of what you do. I agree with you, Anna. I think Uber is a great reference. Instead of using the term burden, perhaps what I would say is we have a shared responsibility. Those of us who participate in the PropTech space, naturally Property Finder takes a very, very heavy responsibility in that, being the, sort of the market authority and the largest portal in town. Um, but the responsibility falls on the portal, on the regulators, on the industry participants, the mortgage brokers, the banks, the valuers. There's a huge deal of responsibility, and ultimately this responsibility is how can this ecosystem, again, work together to not only streamline the process and bring more efficiency and enablement to the industry operators, but also more importantly, how do we make it honest, right? How do you leverage on data and AI? And Lynette, you've done amazing work at Property Finder, and I know you continue to do the same with Allsop. How do we leverage on data and AI to democratize access to that information and empower the consumer to be properly informed when making that decision?
I agree with everyone here. I think the two parts to it. One is the retail prop tech, right? Retail property, the individual home buyer. That is the heartbeat of the economy, and that is important. And there, as everyone has mentioned, it's essentially enabling the journey and enabling the humans in the journey, the buyer, seller, the valuation, through technology. So I don't think anyone at the moment in the real world is aiming to replace all the humans in the system. But yes, we will enable them, and that enablement has gone a long way. Is there technology that perhaps may have gone too far ahead, or maybe it's ahead of the curve? Yes, every now and then there is. But largely, most of the technology has helped the home buying experience become quicker, smoother, cheaper, more broader, more deeper in every sense. There's another part that I'd like to bring in, and most of these conferences and seminars, we don't touch on that part, but a large part of what we see in the built environment is actually done outside of the retail space, in the commercial world, in the corporate world. Bridges are also built environment, hospitals, hotels. So as you know, we run a hospitality fund in India. The reason I am able to sit here in Dubai and take decisions of which hotels to buy, of course, apart from having a local partner there, is the technologies that enable me to understand what the hotel there in a remote part of India is doing through the connectivity that has been enabled over the last 5 to 8 years. 10 or 15 years back, that wouldn't have been possible for me to take a decision on an India hotel purchase sitting here in DWTC. But today you can do it. That enables the real estate ecosystem there. It may not be something that the retail home buyer is directly connected with, but most large banks, for example, have 10,000 plus mortgages. The reason they're able to expand and grow still is because of the technologies that enable them to manage that portfolio seamlessly. And that's the data and digitalization that people like Lynette, Mohammed, Anna, and Russ bring to the table. So I think there's a huge part of behind the scenes that is enabled by digitalization, which I think is a very, very positive trend.
Thank you. To everything that's already been said, the only thing I can really add is that I think taking out the human element, being here and being brought up, I think that would be super difficult. You've got 200 nationalities, you've got a large number of ethnic groups, you've got people that own real estate but don't necessarily live in Dubai. For them to get along and facilitate a transaction, you definitely need a broker. There's no doubt about that. But ideally, yes, you can streamline a lot of things. You can shorten the whole process, and there's definitely room to do that. But I think the problem for me personally is how do you align everything? How do these systems integrate? How can they run efficiently together? When you got so many startups that started perhaps during the COVID time, and there was definitely a need for that. I remember when we couldn't go out to inspect properties, whether because of the lockdown or you had situations with COVID patients in the house, for example, and so our regulator has introduced ways that we can inspect, whether it's via Zoom, whether it's via video, that will be taken. So there were systems, and if this was taken one step ahead, potentially we could have seen a lot more looser compliance and regulation in this regard. But I feel almost like some of these products that have been developed are just nice to have, but when it comes to solving real world problems, I don't feel like they're there. And that could be the problem why you may see so many failures.
I completely agree with you, because for me, looking at the industry, being part of the industry at that point, it was we took one step forward during COVID, and then we took a step back as soon as, you know, it's like we took the masks off. That's how you took one step back. And I'm going to bring this to you, that PropTech solutions, like as far as the conversation we've had, is making the life of everyone in the stakeholder model, you know, easier, simpler, you know, looking at valuing, looking at making the broker's life easier, all of that. Does it really make the home buyer's life easier?
I think this is what we are aiming for. I don't think we are there yet. No one, not Husby and not anyone. So yeah, let's see. I think the issues and the problems, they are clear to everyone. We know what we have to solve, but the how is the challenge, right? We have to test, iterate, and see if it works. See if the client actually likes the solutions that we are proposing, and if we are making their lives easier. But as of now, it's what we aim for.
For this, for me, it was James Cameron in 2000, in the early 2000s said, the reason that I didn't make the movie Avatar is because technology wasn't where I wanted it to be when I made the movie, when I wanted to make the movie. So are we waiting for technology to come in? Like, why is it not evolving as far as everything else? Like, is it just the alignment of stakeholders? Is it we don't have enough information? Why not?
So that's a very big question to answer, but I can tell you just from my industry, right? So on the brokerage side, the challenges that brokerages have is they are real estate brokerages. They're not technology companies. And I work for the top real estate brokerage here in Dubai, and they are very tech savvy, but even with that, they are not a tech company. So when they want to digitize and when they want to implement something past a website or something past a CRM, which is very basic, right? That's very, like every single real estate company has that. That's where the challenges come into place. And that is why they hired me, for example, to kind of map that out and digitize and make it a much easier and simpler process for the consumer, as you rightfully said, Faisal, and take out the pain points for the consumer. Now, each of us here are not going to solve the entire problem. We're going to solve the problem for our industry and for the sector that we're in. So, you know, for mortgages, for valuation, for portal mortgages, and on the finance side, and me on the brokerage side. So I think once all of those things come into play, and I'm thinking maybe in a few years from now here in Dubai, just seeing how fast things have transitioned, especially during COVID. I think that eventually all of us will eventually come together and integrate in some way, shape, or form. And I mean, that is the ideal world, right? We want to integrate in some way, shape, or form to make the process and streamline the process as easy as possible, not only from the brokerage side, but also from the consumer side, as well as from the mortgage evaluation and the finance.
Mohammed, you've worked, you know, I know you spoke earlier about, you know, aligning all the stakeholders. That's what you did in a former position. Does the regulator, does the government need to, does the land department need to step in to get all the stakeholders in line, or is it just individuals that need to work together as some sort of alliance?
Look, I think, as you very well know, right, it is the essence of innovation is problem solving, right? And when both you and Lynette were with Property Finder, you spent probably a good 30 to 40% of your time with the Dubai Land Department. The team continues to engage with the government and the regulatory authorities on bringing more, let's say, enabling innovation. I don't think it's the government's responsibility to innovate. It is the startups, the industry participants. The responsibility falls on us. I think the enablers here are for the investment community, right, to gain the maturity in this region, to understand that real estate is a very expensive problem to solve, and therefore, without an outsized investment round, and a lot of people, there's been some investment rounds lately that have been labeled as outsized, and people don't understand it. It is a very, very big problem to solve. So the investment community needs to participate. The regulators absolutely need to participate as well, but as enablers, not as leaders of the process.
Admir?
I was hoping you wouldn't look at me because I have pretty much the same comment that Lynette made. The banks for sure aren't ready. The banks are not tech companies. Most of the banks are run by people who largely entered banking. If you look at the board members who take these major decisions of realigning the bank to be tech-enabled, tech-oriented, most of them have started their careers and been trained in a non-digital world. Right? They all come from a
Yeah, but see, this is the question that I want to pick up. They're ready to accept crypto. They're ready to get into Web3. You've got the banks sitting across the road with, an office in the metaverse. They're ready to an industry that just came in 2 years ago.
how much business have they done in the metaverse?
I'm talking
See,
about
press release-
enabling.
See, some people love press releases. Right? So, when we talk business, how much part of the bank is actually enabled in the metaverse is zero. Right? It's a nice to have. It's good to be there. But apart from that, actual business, zero in the metaverse. Let's be real. Not a single credit card or a home loan has been sold.
Okay, I got 2 minutes. I'm going to come back to the same point that you've picked up. You've said this might be the biggest transaction people make, which is why there's still that human element. You want to feel, closer. But since now I am in Web 3.0, 4.0 as you say, people are going into the sandbox, into Decentraland. They're buying land for more than something that's real.
How many people?
A lot. Yeah, that is actually quite a lot.
Well, look, this is why I was saying earlier. I said, I'm fairly certain we're going to get there, right? That's the destination, and I think you've seen it on every prop tech pitch deck, Open Door, Husky. Most prop tech innovators begin their story by telling you that real estate is less than 1% digital, right? So the journey, there's a huge distance to travel. Are we going to get there? Most likely, yes, right? When, I don't know. And back to the government, I think it's also important for us to acknowledge that I've never operated in a healthier regulatory environment than the one we have in Dubai, right? Because the regulators are open to change, they're open to support, they're open to enable. The burden, again, or the responsibility falls on all of us industry participants to push the envelope, right? To spend less time in our office, more time at Dubai Land Department or Central Bank, because as you very well know, every time we talk to any of the banking partners that we work with, they say, oh yeah, no, we can't do it because Central Bank, right? Central Bank,
Right.
Central. Well, let's go.
Yep. Look, for me, I see it as there needs to be a lot more focus, a lot more attention. Husky's recently got a huge round of funding, but there isn't something specific which is going out and, okay, like this is a Proptech fund. Like Web3, I've got Zucker over here who runs our funding for our fund for investment structure, actually, for Crypto Oasis, which is specific to Web3 startups. Are there any that are focusing just on Proptech?
Not here, but there's
Around the world? There
yeah,
are?
there's Fifth Wall. Fifth Wall is doing a lot of good work out of New York. There's a couple in the Valley as well that are prop tech focused. Yeah,
But
Right.
locally, no.
Sorry?
But locally, no.
locally no.
Yeah, but the thing is, Faisal, sorry to add, just you guys are creating the ecosystem, whereas there's no such thing for startups in the PropTech world here, at least. You see, to align all the stakeholders together to make sure that the process is streamlined. So that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so we need the property oasis. That puts all of that.
Let's raise capital for Faisal to set up a PropTech 3.0.
No, but let's be fair. There isn't a vertical specific VC in the region for any vertical. There isn't a fintech only VC or a health tech only VC. All VCs here are agnostic because of the size of the market. So as we grow, then yes, VCs may emerge which may say either us or a team. There's not even a managing partner who does only one vertical in any of the VCs. All of them do everything good that comes into the region. So because the region is small, the industry is nascent, the prop tech side, that it's doesn't have its own VC ecosystem. But I don't think that's the best way to judge whether good work is happening. I think there are good prop techs that are making good changes. The regulators definitely interested. There is pressure right from the top. The leadership of the country has said that they want to digitalize. They want Dubai to be the center of the digital ecosystem as we progress. So I believe a lot of good work will happen. It's just that the people at the moment taking some of the decisions don't have a digital native mindset. So for them, this is a bit of a leap that at the moment they haven't fully made. But they do know that it needs to be made, and they are making the right sort of decisions towards that. We haven't arrived yet, but globally also no one's really fully arrived. So in that sense, we are leading the way.
Well, we're almost out of time. Any questions from the audience?
Thank you all. I'm really happy that there is a specific session for property. My question to you guys, what's the one move that you hope to happen in Saudi or Dubai and that will just move this PropTech sector?
One word on that from all of you.
Digital transaction.
Digital transformation.
I think for me it would help along those lines. Maybe a subset is AVMs. Automated valuations would really help.
Real estate agency digitalization.
All the good words taken, but all of the above.
Wait, for Saudi, we need supply.
All right, guys, we're out
people
of
to build.
time. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to all of you working in this sector and seeing what you bring from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an important panel, also really raising the awareness of property technology. And let's hope that next time we're on stage, there's a property oasis and also a more digital mindset within the sector. Thank you so much. Thank you. So these past 4 days, it's definitely been really both deep, relevant, interesting, and fascinating conversations here on stage. And it's great to have conversations, but it's also essential, please, if you could sit down, please. It's also essential that conversations lead to action. Could you all please sit down? Hi, thank you. Thank you. That we walk the talk. So what we're going to do now, before our special guest that I'm going to have a fireside chat with at 2:30, so don't miss that, we're going to have sort of a more outlook on FinTech 20.